Chapter 32. Blue Bay Hotel, a five-star hotel completed only 2 years ago. It is located on the east of Shanghai beside a holiday resort, nestled on a river bank. The entire building had a refreshing and lightly elegant color palette. The dense and sentimental Scottish design makes many of the upper-class businessmen enjoy coming here to negotiate deals. Once she got out of the car, Lin Ruoxi walked to Yang Chen's side, hooked her arm over Yang Chen's elbow, and created the look of a happily dependent little bird. She dully said, "Let's go." Yang Chen smiled, "Who acts like you? If you want others to think our relationship is intimate, you have to at least smile. With this ice mountain-like expression, people will think you're a spiteful woman." "You are the spiteful woman." Lin Ruoxi troublingly frowned, in the end still unable to bring out a smile. The truth was, to even grab onto Yang Chen's arm was considered a huge challenge to her. Lin Ruoxi shook her head and said, "This is fine, as long as we don't reveal any flaws, this is not a problem." Yang Chen thought inside, no one is going to believe that, but didn't say it. Since this innocent CEO wife wants to act, I will accompany her in this play. On the path to enter the hotel, both sides had ancient Greek columns and goddess statues. After entering the hotel, the sides were instead filled with various Western artists' oil paintings of many different sceneries. The imposingly grandiose decorations, which created a fashionable yet classical fusion, made the whole Blue Bay Hotel filled with an air of honor. Even the guests that came and went were immaculately dressed, with arrogant expressions on their faces. "I don't like oil paintings." Yang Chen grumbled, "I always feel that, instead of using oil paintings, why not just use a photograph, it's even clearer too." While holding onto Yang Chen's arm, Lin Ruoxi, who was slowly appreciating the artworks on the alley, glanced at Yang Chen with disdain. "If you don't have any appreciation for art, keep quiet, nobody will think you're a mute. Isn't it so? Otherwise why would I sell mutton skewers?" Yang Chen made a complacent expression. Lin Ruoxi rolled her eyes at him, and whispered, "Remember, when we enter later on, if I don't signal for you to speak, you don't speak." "I will obey, Boss Lin." Yang Chen couldn't resist smiling, and nodded. Being led by two neatly dressed, etiquette ladies, they walked towards a private booth facing the lake. While raising his head, Yang Chen noticed that the private booth's name turned out to be the strongly religiously styled Judas. TLP, etiquette ladies, seen those ladies that bring bouquets to medal winners in the Olympics. Their job is like a waitress but not in a restaurant, an air stewardess but not on a plane. But I have no idea what they're called in English, thus etiquette ladies it is. The milky white decorated wooden door at that time opened. A man wearing a black Hugo Boss suit entered. This man had curly hair, a rugged beard, and he wore a simple smile. Upon gesturing a "Please enter," with his hands he said, "Welcome Miss Lin, our family's young master has been waiting." It was evident that the man excluded Yang Chen, who was holding Lin Ruoxi's hand, from his welcome gesture, and did not eve. Indifferently nodding her head, Ruoxi led Yang Chen into the private room, which was spacious. The scent of lavender scattered all over the place was just enough to raise one's spirits. "Ruoxi, I finally get to meet you." A magnetic voice came out from the sofa. The speaker wore a blue dress shirt, had a head full of neat short hair, and a pale handsome face. He possessed the rare temperament of reverence from the inside out. This type of temperament cannot be nurtured by an average family. Expressionlessly, Ruoxi nodded her head. "Boss Shu, I'll be troubling you." Facing Ruoxi's cold indifference, Xu Zihong wasn't even fazed. Still equipping the appearance of a mature man, he wore a face full of smiles. "I've invited you quite a number of times, and it's quite rare for you to be free. Your father has talked to me about you for quite some time, saying how you've been really busy at work. As a matter of fact, I do not mind. The fact that you were willing to come and join me for dinner alone makes me feel content." It was hard to think that a general manager of a huge company, who is also the eldest heir for one of Shanghai City's 5 greatest families, would welcome a woman with so much affection. "To come and join me for dinner makes me feel content." These words, what kind of effect will they have? It's unknown how other women would react, but Lin Ruoxi was unfazed, and with great difficulty, she only said a few words, "You're too kind." Xu Zihong too did not feel anything was wrong as he personally pulled a chair and invited her, "Come, please sit Ruoxi." From the start to finish, it was as if Xu Zihong and his servant did not see Ruoxi holding a man's hand, as if that man did not exist at all, similar to thin air. Lin Ruoxi felt that she had underestimated Xu Zihong's intelligence. His way of handling this was to just disregard Yang Chen. It seemed as if he had already thoroughly investigated Yang Chen's background. Who would believe that a big corporation CEO would marry a previously unacquainted lamb skewers seller? It appears that Xu Zihong had long known of Lin Ruoxi's fake marriage plan. Lin Ruoxi had no choice but to release Yang Chen's hand, and sit in the designated seat. Yang Chen did not have any problem with that as he went to find a chair to sit next to Ruoxi. Right at that moment, a simple-minded smiling man appeared right in front of Yang Chen and in one movement, he pushed the chair back. Still chuckling, he said, "I don't recognize you, who are you, mister? My young master only invited Miss Lin to this gathering." Not waiting for either Yang Chen or Ruoxi to respond, Xu Zihong, a face full of smiles went, "Harry Ball, you're not allowed to be this rude. I'm sure this person must be Ruoxi's brother of some sort, or else how could they arrive together in such a intimate manner?" Big brother. Yang Chen was a little surprised by this pair of master and servant skills in acting, and smiled, "Wow, remarkable, you guys are all aware of the fact that my family's little Ruoxi frequently calls me, Big Bro, in bed." Silence. It was like everybody forgot to breathe. Don't even mention about the master-servant pair, Xu Zihong and Harry Ball, who wanted to ridicule Yang Chen. Even Lin Ruoxi choked after hearing Yang Chen's abrupt words. She widened her eyes, and looked as if she wanted to strangle Yang Chen to death. This rascal. How dare he say such words? Although these words were meant to retaliate against Xu Zihong and Harry Ball's provocations, but this is too. After hearing such peculiar words, Ruoxi couldn't help but remember her and Yang Chen's affair a few days ago. Her cheeks flushed red, lovable and appetizing. As for Xu Zihong, seeing Lin Ruoxi suddenly displaying an expression of bashfulness like a little girl, first, he was bewitched by her sudden change, but upon thinking again, for Lin Ruoxi to feel shy from that man's words, his heart turned cold and he couldn't help but wonder, is their relationship really not that simple? Xu Zihong, whose complexion turned ugly and pale, laughed with great difficulty and said, "This mister sure knows how to joke around, since you've come, you're a friend. Harry Ball, you're not allowed to joke around with this mister, everyone, please sit back down." Yang Chen couldn't help but to assess Xu Zihong a little higher. It seems that he isn't a brainless, fuerdai, he even knows how to endure. Fuerdai is a term used to describe rich kids in China, it means the second generation of the rich. Lin Ruoxi was worthy of being called a successful businesswoman. Although those words made her pissed off, she continuously remembered her primary goal for coming here, and quickly calmed her heart down. She then said to Xu Zihong, "Boss Xu, since it's still early, let's first discuss the autumn fashion show." Yes. Xu Zihong no longer paid any attention to Yang Chen, and quickly reverted back into an expression of a graceful gentleman. He smiled and said, "Whatever Ruoxi says shall be agreed upon, today the host shall follow the guest's wishes." Chapter 33. Although Xu Zihong said that to please Lin Ruoxi, once the discussions actually started, it would become a tug of war. Things that ought to be yielded should be, and things that ought to be fought for should be as well. In actuality, Xu Zihong was very clear, dealing with women like Lin Ruoxi, the art of sweet talk does not work at all. As both of them were businessmen, he must utilize methods to convince the other party. If a man gives up his career for a woman, how will this sort of man win the heart of a strong woman like Lin Ruoxi? Just like Xu Zihong, once the official talks began, Lin Ruoxi's words started increasing as well. Her interpersonal relationship skills may not be that great, but once she started talking, this ridiculously beautiful girl also displayed a somewhat bitchy demeanor. Once she started to argue, she wouldn't give up until she reaped the maximum amount of benefits. So, when an hour passed, Yang Chen, who was bored to death, couldn't help but to stare just like what Harry Ball was doing. It was evident that Harry Ball was interested in Yang Chen throughout the discussion. He sized him up and attempted to provoke him by glaring at him. Towards these types of men who didn't care about their appearance, Yang Chen expressed his dislike. Although he could measure Harry Ball's strength with a single glance, which was comparable to an average, elite international mercenary, in his division, it could be comparable to an instructor for the Marines. However, in the eyes of Yang Chen, these people could not be called fighters, soldiers, and were only viewed as average people. And so, while Harry Ball was provoking Yang Chen, with loathsome eyes, Yang Chen had the urge to give him a slap. But, after thinking how he was a white-collar worker now, it would be wise to not create extra trouble and take into account his wife's business. Therefore, Yang Chen could only sit in his chair, take out the phone Lin Ruoxi gifted him, download the game, Puzzle Bobble, and seriously focus on popping bubbles. TL, the popping bubbles is a joke on shooting the gun, you know which gun. Yes, I hope Boss Shu can stick to his promises. This year's autumn fashion show, with your company's stage deskins and our company's fall wear, it is certain that we will capture a wider market. Lin Ruoxi finally said as she signed the contract. Due to speaking for an extended amount of time, her cheeks were flushed, displaying her hard-to-come-by supple beauty. While looking at this scene, Xu Zihong's eyes dulled for a moment before nodding. Of course, I hope that our partnership goes smoothly. Only when the two swapped the documents could this long-winded discussion which lasted till 7 p.m. be considered over. Since business is concluded, I expect that you are now hungry, Ruoxi. Let's have the food served now. Lin Ruoxi was actually quite hungry. Just like other women, in order to maintain her figure, Lin Ruoxi only ate a small sandwich for lunch. She was working till now, and her stomach was rumbling from hunger as she lightly nodded her head. Xu Zihong clapped, and the waiters near the door immediately started to get busy. The dinner was of formal Western cuisine. While the dinnerware was being set on the table, Lin Ruoxi glanced towards Yang Chen with worry in her eyes. Obviously, the sudden switch to Western cuisine was to embarrass Ya. This Mr. is named. Xu Zihong asked with an insincere smile towards Yang Chen. Surnamed Yang, named Chen. Yang Chen yawned. He was both too hungry and sleepy. Upon seeing that it was Western cuisine, he whispered in his heart, this is not even as filling as a bowl of noodles. Even though it's my first time meeting Yang Chen, I did not prepare a proper gift. I specially ordered a bottle of Nebbiolo from the year 1992, and I hope that Mr. Yang can evaluate it for me. As he finished saying that, he signaled a waiter to bring over the bottle of beautifully packaged red wine. In his heart, Yang Chen couldn't help but sneer while staying silent. Using 3 fingers, he lightly raised the glass, allowing the waiter to pour wine in it. The waiter only poured a bit before stopping. Yang Chen didn't feel anything out of place and he lightly swirled the liquid around the glass, smelt the wine, placed the tilted glass to his lips, and slowly savored a sip. Upon seeing this action, the once tense Lin Ruoxi slowly relaxed. Having obtained some relief, she remembered that this hoodlum grew up in the United States. He must have had traditional Western cuisine before, but she didn't know if he had tasted a famous red wine like Nebbiolo. Hopefully he doesn't speak drivel, even losing a little face is fine. Xu Zihong's eyes flashed with a tinge of worry. Smiling, he asked, Mr. Yang, what do you think? The ingredients of Nebbiolo mainly comes from Italy's Piedmont region's Barolo and Barbaresco municipalities. If it is of the highest grade, it can only match an ordinary French Margaux Bordeaux red wine. It's actually not particularly good. However, this type of wine brings with it a tinge of lilac, pepper, apricot, dried plum and rose. More importantly, it has the feeling of bitter chocolate, which is why it can still considered avant-garde. Yang Chen replied nonchalantly, as if this wine was made by him. From this, Xu Zihong felt a bit of surprise. In actuality, even though he drank these types of wines on a regular basis, he could not give out such a detailed description. He would not believe that Yang Chen only guessed all these by luck, as all his other movements regarding Western cuisine were all in accordance with the manners of an educated gentleman from high society. True enough, it seems that Mr. Yang Chen is truly not ordinary. It's no wonder that Ruoxi wanted you to accompany her. Xu Zihong fakely smiled with his skin but not his flesh. Just a bit. Yang Chen did not have any interest in accompanying this hypocritical man for a conversation. He straightforwardly says, without a trick or two up my sleeves, how can I manage to become the husband of my family's little Ruoxi? Isn't that right, my wife? With that said, he looked towards Lin Ruoxi with a questioning expression. Lin Ruoxi's lovable dimples suddenly flashed red. Although she knew Yang Chen did this in order to help her obstruct Xu Zihong attempts, but being called wife in this situation, her heart almost couldn't bear it. Batum, her heart nearly jumped up to her throat, she rigidly nodded her head, gave a thin voice of agreement, quickly lowered her head and started sipping at her cup to cover her embarrassment. Xu Zihong could not believe that this mutton skewer selling man would actually dare to flirt directly in his face, and jointly put on a play with Lin Ruoxi to ward himself away. With one hand gripping tightly onto the crystal-clear wine glass, even his veins were visible, his complexion was a little green from the anger as he forced a laugh and said, "So the two of you have already tied the knot, I am truly sorry. I have been rude." Quote. No, Yang Chen didn't mind and magnanimously smiled, "I am aware, with my standards, for me to have married my family's little Ruoxi is like sticking a fresh flower in a mound of cow dung. For director Xu to not realize is not surprising, as a person, I'm not too bothered by things like this. Originally, I had been worried that with the little cash in my pocket, how could I bring my wife to eat a good meal? I never thought that Boss Xu would invite us out, you are truly too caring." What Yang Chen implied was, you are merely a money-sending idiot. Resisting his anger, Xu Zihong pursed his lips and took a sip of red wine. Finally speaking, he smiled, "Mr. Yang, must be joking, to be able to obtain Ruoxi's eye, how could one's pocket lack money? On that note, let's start eating." "Great, bring in the food." Yang Chen said as if he didn't notice Xu Zihong's fire-emitting glare. All smiles, he picked up his cutlery to allow the waiter behind him to place the appetizer in front of him. Minding his own business, he started to eat. After hearing Xu Zihong's words which were full of anger, Lin Ruoxi started to feel apprehensive. However, upon seeing Yang Chen fully focused on eating and drinking like a country bumpkin, her heart lightened up. This person simply can't stay upright, he is obviously very proficient in eating Western-style food and Western dining etiquette to the point even she is surprised, yet he eats like a slob on purpose. He is really unfathomable. Gradually, Lin Ruoxi's worries seemed to have dissipated into thin air. Who cares about him? Things have already gotten like this, I could only take one step at a time. With this thought, Lin Ruoxi felt hungry and she too started to move her fork and knife. Chapter 34. Finally, they finished eating. Thanks to Yang Chen's huge appetite, they had to prepare another 3 servings of steak before he was satisfied. Xu Zihong could only feel his blood dripping out of his heart. Before his eyes, was a content and burping lamb skewer seller who from the start, had been minding himself the whole time. For him, this extra loss of money did not amount to anything, but Yang Chen's rascal-like appearance, made Xu Zihong lose the strength to fight back. Every verbal attack only felt like punching at cotton, a waste of strength. "Thank you for the hospitality, Boss Xu, I believe we should get going now," said Lin Ruoxi as she wiped her mouth in a refined manner, and stood up. At this moment, Xu Zihong, who was already exhausted, smiled and said, "Ruoxi, it's already this late, wouldn't it be better for me to allow Harry Ball to drive you back? Driving at night is not safe." No need, Yang Chen responded, "Doesn't she have me? After eating 4 steaks, my strength is at its peak. Boss Xu, your steaks are impressive, it's like taking Viagra. It guarantees that I can be vigorous the whole night." Upon hearing such vulgar words, the waiters in the private room all couldn't help but burst out laughing. They gazed at Yang Chen and Lin Ruoxi with dubious expressions, but even an idiot could realize what they were thinking about. Lin Ruoxi blushed, and secretly pinched Yang Chen's arm. She felt too embarrassed from the loss of face. Inside Xu Zihong's heart, curses such as brute, country bumpkin, and beast could be heard, yet on the outside, his face was rigid and unmoving as he had to force his mouth to talk. "You're too polite, Mr. Yang, it should be a given. Harry Ball, please see them out." Not waiting to stay in the private room any longer, Lin Ruoxi dragged Yang Chen's hand and quickly left from there. Being in the room full of waiters, and getting strange gazes from them made her face turn scorching hot. Only when he finished seeing those two out did Harry Ball adopt a sloppy appearance as he went back into the private room. Xu Zihong had already relaxed his body and was sitting on the big sofa letting a waitress from the Blue Bay Hotel massage his shoulders. Finished seeing them off, Xu Zihong asked with his eyes half closed, his voice downcast. Fishing a cigarette from his pocket, he lit it up and fiercely took a couple of breaths. He naively smiled and showed a mouth full of yellow teeth. I've seen them out. Miss Lin drove pretty quickly, leaving behind only a wisp of exhaust smoke from her car before disappearing into the distance. HMPH, Xu Zihong coldly laughed. This stupid woman, she thinks she can get away from me just because she brought a man to hinder me. She is underestimating me way too much. Boss, do you want me to find this man surnamed Yang and get rid of him? Once this little youngster realizes who he is dealing with, he won't dare to act this cocky. Harry Ball said, swinging his arm in a slicing motion. You need not do anything for now. I only need to send out a couple of capable people, but I first need to gain knowledge of his bottom line. I do not believe that a lamb skewer seller can know anything about Nebbiolo. Furthermore, even if he is a bit vulgar, he doesn't seem like an idiot. An NBS. Boss, you are thinking too much. In this day and age, you can find out everything about a person online, nothing can be hidden. If he truly is such a big shot, why is he selling lamb skewers on the streets? Harry Ball scoffed. Even a dam, 1,000 miles long, can be broken down by an ant nest, so if you are to do something, do it with caution. This is why you are the subordinate while I am the boss. Xu Zihong responded faintly with his eyes half closed. Yes. Yes, whatever boss says goes. Tomorrow, I ought to go on the streets and find people to rough him up. Even if he ends up dead, he can only blame himself. Harry Ball then scratched his head and asked, Boss, why do you tie yourself down like this? Miss Lin is really beautiful, but in Zhanghai City, there are countless beauties for your taking. Unlike me, with my looks, if I don't wave a couple of big bills around, even a prostitute wouldn't look at me. Said Harry Ball while playing with his beard. What do you know? Xu Zihong responded, a woman's beauty is only secondary. Lin Ruoxi's appearance, although there may not be many who can match her in Zhanghai, but what about the whole nation? What about the whole world? The world is so big, beauties can be counted by the millions. Then why do you so stubbornly chase Miss Lin, boss? Harry Ball didn't seem to understand. Harry Ball, do you think that a single woman, especially a woman who is beautiful at an early age, who managed to take total control of Yulei International is only a pretty face? Her temperament, in Zhanghai's high society circle, is famous for its coldness. With almost no friends, she managed to pass through all hurdles. In these past years, Yulei's stock did nothing but rise. Do you think it is that easy to do? Is it possible that boss wants to find a woman to help with the business? She is a management genius, but that doesn't mean I am any worse than her. It is only that at Yulei, in the hearts of all employees, her existence has a certain kind of prestige. That is why they are able to achieve such results there. Xu Zihong composedly said, the reason why I want to obtain her, besides the fact that she is worthy enough to be conquered, is that I believe she is the only woman able to be with me. There is another reason, but you would not understand. I truly don't understand. Harry Ball smiled back, boss is definitely smarter than I am, or else why would I follow you? Xu Zihong hummed in agreement, you don't have to act like this. That other woman that you like, Mo Qianni, also works at Yulei International. If I managed to get Lin Ruoxi, it would be synonymous with taking over Yulei. Upon taking over Yulei International, the women there of Yulei would be close to your grasp. Upon hearing the name, Mo Qianni, Harry Ball's two eyes immediately brightened up. Licking his lips, he released a breath of cold air. Boss, how can you mention that woman again? I dream of Mo Qianni's ass and boobs even when I sleep. If we can manage to get her in bed, that would be amazing. I would be wrung dry. It would have been fine if you didn't mention her, but now, tonight, I have to go out to a nightclub and find a chicken. TL, in Chinese, the word GG means chicken, but sometimes refers to a prostitute. Go. It seems that you are even more crude than that lamb skewer seller. Xu Zihong narrowed his eyes at Harry Ball for a second, while cursing without restraint. Harry Ball didn't mind what he had heard and quickly left the private room. Not long after Harry Ball left, Xu Zihong slowly extended his hand and in one move grabbed the wrist of the waitress who was giving him a massage. Expressionlessly, he asked, how much money? The waitress distractedly stared and the flirtatious face with large amounts of foundation blushed with bashfulness. She hesitated a bit, then responded, 5,000, this is my first time doing this. HMPH, Xu Zihong coldly laughed, only 5,000, sluts will be sluts, as cheap as a bitch. Come to the front, take off your clothes, and start by giving me head. The woman, upon hearing these insults, nearly started crying. However, upon thinking of the 5,000 at stake, she endured those words. Putting out an enchanting smile, she walked in front of Xu Zihong and slowly started to take off her clothes. Not a long time passed until a woman's miserable moans could be heard accompanied by a man's unrestrained insults. Smoking in front of the door, Harry Ball had already drove away all other waiters, guaranteeing that there was no one around them. Only he was there laughing to himself. Boss was calling me crude, yet he even found a chicken quicker than I did. Those with money sure like to show off.